It's from Roelof van den Broek, from his work entitled Gnosticism. He explains that the Gnostic religion is understood as a phenomenon that flourished in the great myths of the 2nd and 3rd century, which spread across the Middle East and Roman Empire, up to the Far East. Van den Broek enumerates 4 typical features of Gnosticism. 1. A distinction is made between the highest unknown God and the imperfect or plainly evil creator God, who is often identified with the God of the Bible. 2. This is often connected with an extensive description of the divine world, or pleroma, from which the essential core of human beings derives, and of a disastrous fall of a divine being, Sophia or wisdom, in this upper world. 3. As a result, humankind has become entrapped in the earthly condition of oblivion and death, from which it is saved by the revelation of Gnosis by one or more heavenly messengers. 4. Salvation is often actualized and celebrated in rituals that are performed within the Gnostic community. Or we can take the simple definition of Andrew Philip Smith from his book, John the Baptist and the Gnostics. It goes, stuff like what the ancient Gnostics used to do. I should mention that an important component of Gnosticism, and certainly Gnosis, is gratitude. And you can certainly find it aplenty in the Nag Hammadi library and Hermetic texts, in many hymns and prayers, even in the surly Scythian gospel. The truth of this universe is horror, but this also comes with awe, for there is a knowledge of higher realities, and that something can be done to rescue the light from the darkness of mere being. There's no reason one can't hold awe and horror at the same time in one's mind, and they're probably overlapping feelings when you think about it. Let us end with the prayer of thanksgiving from the Nag Hammadi library. We give thanks to you. Every soul and heart is lifted up to you. Undisturbed name, honored with the name, quote, God, and praised with the name, quote, Father. For to everyone and everything comes the fatherly kindness and affection of love, and any teaching there may be that is sweet and plain, giving us mind, speech, and knowledge. Mind, so that we may understand you. Speech, so that we may expound you. Knowledge, so that we may know you. We rejoice, having been illuminated by your knowledge. We rejoice because you have shown us yourself. We rejoice because while we are in the body, you have made us divine through your knowledge. Indeed, we rejoice, especially when you arrive at the virtual Alexandria for one more episode of Aeon Bite. Welcome everybody to this Gnostic dream, that ship smoke on the horizon. Welcome to thee in this age of Hermes, this Philip K. Dick world, and these Gnostic times. I hope you're writing your own gospel and living your own myth. I hope you're running with those searching for the truth and avoiding those who have found it. I hope you are going inward to find your true, authentic self, the one that has the purpose you need to make a difference now and forever. My name is Miguel Connor, and I am your Pompatus of Gnosis, that madman across the waters of creation, that smell of colitas rising through the air of a world gone mad. And today we will be talking about sovereignty in many ways, as well as spiritual and body liberation. Joining us for this adventure, it is a pleasure to have Scott Stanley. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're most welcome, Miguel. It's a pleasure to visit with you today. I loved your opening invocation.
That's what it was. Yeah, give thanks, because everything's gonna be all right. As Julian of Norwich said, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." And somebody we hope is well is my wingman, and for today, and that's Graham. Graham, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well. I'm interested in hearing about, Scott's battle against the man. And, I'm rooting for Scott.
Same here. Same here. Well, awesome. Good to see people in the chat. As always, this is an open podcast, so available to everybody. But if you have any questions or remarks you want the world to see, please super chat them so we can get them out. And a lot of good stuff coming in April. This Wednesday, we will have a gated show where we'll be joined by Cliff Fallen to discuss to his second show on the Anunnaki, and he'll focus more on DNA and the Archon agenda and other stuff, which I will get to as the show progresses. So first of all, Scott, for those who may not know you, please tell the audience a little bit about yourself as you walk around your grounds. Scott?
Okay. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I'm trying to improve the connection here a little bit right now. That last question trailed off just a little bit. If you wouldn't mind sort of restating that.
Yeah, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh, sure. Uh, well, so as you suggested, kind of alluded to, uh, we have our little Ayahuasca church.
You're breaking up, Scott.
Okay, that's going to improve in just a second.
I hope so.
We
Unless the man is sabotaging things.
I think so. Or right now we're trying to get a better signal. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna blip off for just a split second, and I'm
All right.
not gonna cut the connection. I'm just gonna switch over to
All right.
to
All
cell
right.
service. We'll see if that improves it.
All right.
How am I sounding right now?
Sound good.
Okay, well, why don't we just stick with that? I've been working with the medicine since about 2009, and then in 2015 we started this little church of ours out in the Arizona desert. And then about uh, uh, over the course of the last 10 years or so, I've probably led about 700 different ceremonies over that period. And it's so time flies. Our whole troop gets down to Peru quite a bit, and each time we go down, we learn more about the music. We learn more about these traditions and these histories, the deep uh, knowledge of this whole pharmacopoeia of plants that surround ayahuasca. And every 2 weeks now, we have ceremonies out in the Arizona desert, just west of Tucson. So about back in 2018, 2019, I was talking with our attorney, and he said, he's like, Scott, I think you're going to need to sue the DEA.
Mm.
And the first words out of my mouth were balls. Like, Charles, who sues the DEA? I'm like, don't get me wrong. I'm like, I'm not dead set against it, but I'm gonna need some time to think about it. So why don't you lay out the case for me? And he laid out the case, and I called him up the next morning. He said, let's do it. At issue was that if we applied for an exemption that was effectively this exemption process was laid down by some landmark cases, including a case with involving Uda Vegetal, this O Centro case. It went all the way to the Supreme Court with Jeffrey Bronfman as kind of the spearhead for it as the director of Una de Vegetal out of Santa Fe, a syncretic religion based out of Brazil, and so it had made the transition from Brazil to Santa Fe, and then they had a raid. The DEA took their sacrament, and they pushed it all the way through to the Supreme Court and they won. And interestingly enough, Bronfman was heir to the Seagram's liquor fortune, so he was. His family was more than familiar actually with was back in the day was smuggling liquor, and now it was in his case it was, as the DEA saw it, smuggling ayahuasca up from South America. So I guess maybe the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Indeed.
And so his own personal prohibition ended for his church, and they were able to get uh, a settlement agreement with the DEA. But the end result of that Supreme Court case meant that other churches could apply, and up to very recently, in fact, even today, not a single active ayahuasca church has earned an exemption through that application process. So what we know is that it's fraud. And what our attorney was telling me back in 2018 was 2019 maybe, I mean, it's a fraud. And if you apply under that exemption, you're agreeing not to serve any sacrament. In
What?
fact, you're agreeing effectively, yep, you're agreeing not to practice. And if you sign off on it on a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, so like, okay, sure, well, I'll play that game. Then you're putting yourself at legal risk for perjury. So, and I'm like, well, all right, Charles. Well, I guess we don't have any choice. Oh, we're going to have to sue. And it took a bit to actually even get them to sort of receive the service of process. We finally punched through, and so we've been in an active case, an active lawsuit with the DEA since May of 2020. Now we're into year 6 of this, and the DEA doesn't seem to think that we um, uh, they still have a element of their case. The question is whether we're sincere or not. After 6 years of this legal battle, they're wondering if we're sincere. Uh, that alone, let me tell you, it's like it has not been easy. And at this point, I think what they're really trying to knock us down and on the with like they're they're playing a bunch of dirty tricks, effectively just trying to exhaust us. And
Mm,
if they can exhaust us enough, to just go away. We won't have the wherewithal, but we've got a great legal team. We're using state of the art research tools through LexisNexis and through our, like data and discovery programs. We're using AI. That's helpful for research. We have that tied in with Lexis. So I think, and is since this case has been going on for 6 years, one of our new attorneys was actually studying this case when she was in law school. So
well,
that's all the good. So that gives you a little bit of background on me, a little bit of background on the case, maybe a little background as to like why we're having this discussion right now.
yeah, and so what are you trying to do? If you can win the lawsuit, basically you would be put under the umbrella of a bona fide religious movement and its expressions. So you're from the Arizona Yahi Assembly. Is that what you're looking for?
That's right. Yeah, our church name is the Arizona Yahe Assembly, and it would allow we'd have an agreement. We'd have effectively a DEA number that would allow us to import ayahuasca from South America without it being seized, and would then every couple of years the DEA would do an audit. A talk with Jonathan Goldman, who was the director, who's currently the director, but during the lawsuit he was director. for the Santo Daime Church out of Ashland, Oregon, and they won as well. And in discussion with Jonathan, he was like, Scott, once you get to the other side of it, they're basically just bean counters. They're going to do a simple audit: what comes in, what goes out, the sacrament that's imported, and the sacrament that's used. They just want to keep a track on diversion. He says it's quite simple, and so the enforcement arm is a totally separate deal. So the DA is kind of bifurcated that way, and so he has a nice working relationship with them, and he has some accounting software that he uses specifically for ayahuasca. So once we're on the other side of it and we have our agreement with the DA, then we can kind of settle in. But we will at that point be able to, I think it's going to simplify things quite a bit in terms of bringing ayahuasca up here to the States, and also bringing shaman up the States with their medicine to participate in our ceremonies, so that we don't have to worry about them going through all the time, the expense, and frankly, these days, the risk of coming up to the States with ayahuasca in tow. So we'll
So
be
right
able.
now you're sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, kind of. You're doing it, but you should be doing it, but they're looking away, but you just want it to be clear and transparent.
That's right, and there's actually no wink about it. I mean, we're quite clear in the concept in federal court that, as a matter of fact, the court required it. But even prior to that, our ceremonies are taking place every 2 weeks out in the desert at at our site west of Tucson, and the within the within our trial there, or within our court case, the federal agencies, the Department of Justice, are well aware of it. But as a result of the case, they 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 it gives us an umbrella of protection while this case is taking place. So we have not had any particular issues. We wouldn't have any issues. We're not going to have any. It would blow a hole in the opposition's case for them to, I think, even to have even the semblance of some kind of raid on our compound, or the theft of our medicine. And at one point they had seized some of the medicine coming up from the States. And so I asked Charles, I said, hey, do you mind, contacting the Kevin Hancock over the Department of Justice, and let him know that, because the case was just initiated, I'm like, we want our medicine back. And Hancock was courteous enough to say, when Charles called him up, oh, hey, we're working on it. But there was nothing more than that, other than we're working on it. And then he wrote us he was cordial enough to write a letter back to us to let us know that, to give us all the reasons why he couldn't give it back to us, or the DOJ, working in partnership with the DEA, could not bring our medicine back to back in the ceremony, or to complete the delivery. So, and all of those reasons for holding our medicine and telling us why we couldn't get it back, we've actually ended up being folded back into our lawsuit. So it was actually kind of helpful. So that's where we stand today.
And do you feel that if you win this case, it could snowball, or is it still a case by case thing? And also, do you feel the government just really has a thing for ayahuasca, or is it just blanket how they do these things? They just don't like any side of entheogens.
I think there's a lot of institutional inertia. I think there's no one's really, in the end, no one's personally out to get us. I think they also have other priorities, which they're not doing a very good job at. But if you take a look at the opiate crisis here in this country, that's a complete disaster, and
Mhm.
the DEA is failing at the job at at multiple levels. So at the same time, I'm absolutely aghast that they would want to keep people from getting off of hard drugs like methamphetamine and fentanyl and heroin and cocaine and like an array of other opiates and prescription opiates, that they would want to block. I'm aghast they would want to close those doors and block those pathways.
Uh,
For lots of different reasons. I mean, if you take a look at how many people have died over the last 10 years, just from methadone. 50,000 people have
my
died
God.
from methadone over the course of the last 10 years. Uh, if you're looking at uh, uh, if you're looking at other opiates, the numbers start to approximate over that period of time, like start to approximate 1 million. It's those you're talking at the very least hundreds of thousands of people who have died
Yeah.
from opiates. Uh, it is now methadone's supposed to be that's the one that supposedly gets people off of these hard drugs. It's considered a Schedule 2, not a Schedule 1, obviously, because it's prescribed. Prescription, Schedule 1s are supposed to be, they're reserved for drugs that are highly addictive, with a profile of abuse, with high risk factors involved. I mean, methadone, 50,000 people dead. It's highly addictive. Um, the maybe its abuse profile is low, but it depends on how you keep score. How many people have died from DMT over the course of that same time period?
0.
Goose egg. All right, and and then there have been uh, there are reporting agencies, international reporting agencies, that have taken a look to see how many people have been uh, injured from ayahuasca. Direct, and the answer, it looks as though the answer is very similar. If you start addressing, you have to address other risk factors, and you're really looking overseas. Uh, and so once you narrow it down to the ayahuasca itself, you're looking at a very, very safe substance. And as long as it's used, within, uh, for example, SSRIs have got to be eliminated. The As long as the key uh, contraindications are addressed, it's a very safe substance. Uh, the Meanwhile, you have hundreds of thousands of people that are dying in the opiate crisis, and that door is being shut. And that includes veterans. So roughly 22 veterans die every single day.
Oh my God.
Suicide. Now,
Well,
but if you start taking a look at overdoses, the number goes way up. Uh, so it goes up from 22 a day. Uh, and meanwhile, the DEA is sitting on their flipping hands. It's like, so you get, when I said that no single person was against us, that's what I see. I mean, the institutions are against us. There you have institutional power, you have institutional inertia, but when you're looking at the individuals, I don't see anyone that's really standing out against ayahuasca and entheogens, the DEA's policy is poorly stated. In fact, I don't think they actually even want to state it. And we've asked for them to state it within our court case, and they've actually refused. And we've asked them for I'll give you another example of one of the things we're up against in the court case. They're asking for the names of all of our members. They're asking for every email, their names, all their personal identifying information, etc. And of course, we're not going to give that. And so we've asked them, well, why do you need all that information in this case? But by the way, just as a reminder to the DA, you're defendants in this case, right? You're not prosecuting. This
Right.
is that we initiated. You have questions you need to answer. Why do you need this personal identifying information for our entire membership? We've had over 5,000 people who've come through ceremony over the course of the last 10, 11 years. It's substantial, and so we have over 120,000 correspondents, and so that's a lot of correspondence to review. Why do you need it? They haven't answered. What's your policy regarding entheogens? We don't know. What is your criteria for allowing ayahuasca churches to earn an exemption? Not stated. Don't know.
Jesus.
Do you have any? Who your resident experts on religion for making an analysis for sincerity? We don't know. It's outrageous.
It is.
Meanwhile, this discovery process, trying to sort of comb through all the documents they've given us, many of which are duplicates and like utterly worthless, is expensive, and this additional time is expensive. So, clearly, I think on a tactical basis, they're trying to intimidate other ayahuasca churches. Hey, if you apply for an exemption, you won't get it.
Scott, I think you went mute. I can't hear you. Must be the DEA. There you go. You're back.
Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So on the other hand of the other side of the coin, if you sue, we're going to try to get the names and emails and telephone numbers of all your members. It's an intimidation tactic. It's also tactically it's expensive. So it's a way to to force the hand of practicing ayahuasca churches, not the visionary churches, and there are other cases that are taking place now as well. So I think what the DA is looking at is they're realizing they've got a revolution on their hands, and they have no effective criteria for measuring a church, and they lack the authority under the First Amendment to be able to determine who's a church and who's not. Certainly Congress doesn't have that authority, and so how do you determine who a church is? I think our case is effectively stating this in many ways. We have the right to self-determination. So who determines a church? It's the congregation that determines who the church is, not the government. And that is a very risky proposition for the DEA. Like, hey, wait a second. You can't just have a bunch of people get together and say we're a church. Actually, you can.
Yeah.
That's the hallmark. That is not only that's the First Amendment, it's the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment, the First Amendment secures the right to free practice of religion without the government saying this is a religion and this is not a religion. And the 10th Amendment says that all those powers that aren't reserved to the federal government are reserved to the states, and all those powers that aren't reserved to the states are reserved to the people. Well, the the power to determine who's and what is a church is not reserved to the feds or the states. It's the congregation that determines that. That small element of law is seismic for the DEA. That all these little churches can say, you know what, we're a church. Our congregations determine we're a church. All right. This is no charade. All right. If you think it's a charade, it's your job to prove that it's a charade, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We get to engage in free practice right out of the gate. When there's shenanigans going on, then you get to make your case, not the reverse. And so these are some of the things that we've been up against, and some of the things we're addressing now.
Yeah, so happy you're doing this. So happy you're doing this. I have to let a cat out. Graham, do you have a question for Scott? And I'll be right back in about 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do. I was curious, how much of this do you think is based on the change in the government since our founding? Where it seems to me our current government is much more of a government of the corporations, by the corporations, for the corporations. And the struggles you're hitting is because you're not offering, they need to regulate, control, and tax a religion or any activity. And your activity just doesn't generate enough tax money and produces people that cannot be controlled by the government. And that's the main reason they're against it. They would much rather have unhappy consumers than happy people with their lives. Hey, what do you think?
Yeah, it makes me think that there's a pharmaceutical representative that appeared at the MAPS conference a couple of years ago to make an announcement. I was there for this. He was
All right, I'm back. Just when Scott froze. What was your question, Graham?
great. His question was, do you think you get better treatment if you were a big corporation? And it has me thinking about this pharmaceutical representative who was speaking at the MAPS conference, who was saying, hey, we're working on an ayahuasca pill. And I think he was to a bunch of boos and jeers from the audience.
Yeah.
People have been like, oh, please. I think they were doing it so they could try to standardize the dose to study ayahuasca. But again, it's kind of like it's entirely studying it out of context and, of course, missing the point. But, if you take a look at the opiate epidemic, billions were made. Billions. And the Sackler family is on the streets today.
Yeah.
After pushing their opiate agenda. There was they worked out an agreement. There was no trial. There's no criminal trial. It's very very collegial relationship between large corporate interests and the agencies that they've captured. And ayahuasca hasn't exactly captured those agencies in the same way through big money, but ayahuasca is, there's certainly people inside of the all walks, like all professions, all walks of life. That includes, people with federal jobs, people in the military, or the people that are working inside of various agencies, or even within the judicial department, no doubt. You get people with security clearances. You have people law enforcement and uh, uh, the active duty military, non-active duty military. Uh, you have a wide array of people who sat with ayahuasca, and for good flippin' reason, so that they can, in many cases, get over their PTSD,
Right.
or they have their own like some deep personal healing. Uh, I've even seen Palestinians and Israelis talk about working through their shared trauma together. And with that kind of background, I think once we become, we earn our full credential to practice uh, within federal regulatory uh, guidelines, then there are going to be plenty of people who are going to be able to stand up and talk about their ayahuasca experiences inside of government. And that's going to change things markedly. But your ayahuasca doesn't work well inside of like the pharmaceutical matrix because you can't offer it as a pill. It works within a religious context. It works within a spiritual context. When I say religious
Yeah.
context, I mean a an organized spiritual practice by definition is a religious practice, and so that within that, when you have people of a shared mind, heart, and principle engaging in a spiritual pursuit, you're looking at a religious context. You're looking at people engaged in religious practice. That's where ayahuasca shines. It ain't a pill that you can give someone in isolation.
Oh.
Typically, if a doctor prescribes a statin drug, he doesn't need to take that statin. He doesn't need to take the hypertensive. He doesn't. The doctor doesn't take any of the pills he prescribes. So ayahuasca is decidedly outside of that kind of medical tradition. Inside of the traditions of ayahuasca, the people that are sitting with the ayahuasca, the people that are facilitating the ceremonies, sit with the medicine and have sat with them and have a deep familiarity with it. And it's not taken in isolation.
No.
It's done within circles, on a community basis. And then you have a group of people who connect with, you could call it the non-material, the non-measurable, the ineffable, the divine, and then they bring that into the lovely and intricate instrumentation of the human form, and then it spills out into the space, spills out into the circle, and it's an outpouring through people's hearts. So from that standpoint, the DEA doesn't know which side is up. They're trying to measure things on a structuralist basis. They don't know how to measure the non-measurable. Well, guess what? You're never going to be able to do that, right? It's like you don't measure the immeasurable, right? It's measured with nothing more than your heart, and so it's utterly preposterous that such a heartless interpretation of the human condition when it comes to health should be applied to these should be the uh, 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 and these should be the individuals or the agencies or the functionaries that offer the imprimatur of genuine and sincere religion, like they would know, like they would flippin' know after all the damage and like that and death that the opiate epidemic has caused,
Uh,
and they've got concerns about ayahuasca ceremonies helping people to get off these drugs or heal from their PTSD. It's flippin' outrageous.
it
It's the
is.
height of flippin' hypocrisy. It is such like to take a look, take a couple 100,000 bodies dead from opiates and stack them around the Washington Monument and see how that smells.
Yeah.
Take a look at it, because that's what you're looking at. And any one individual wants to stand up for an institution with the sanctimonious air of helping people and making communities safer, like they're making communities safer, uh, which, as if,
Yeah.
right? I know when I see people come into ayahuasca ceremonies, I see people heal, I see people go back to their communities, I see happier families, I see friendships blossom. I see people really, with love for for the members of the community. I see people heal and grow. You know,
Uh, I agree with you, Scott. The idea of doing ayahuasca alone is like, what's the point? It's like you said, as we say in Santo Daime, the lady decides the agenda and she chooses you, and it has to be in a public space. As I say, they create the corrente, as they say in Portuguese, but call it the egregore. And of course, the individual, the patriarch or the shaman, or in your case, as you call yourself, you stand at the door like the trickster gods. That's what makes it. It all works together. It's not something you could just get a dose or anything like that. It's participating in the human and the divine experience. And wouldn't that be the proof, though, Scott? Like with psilocybin and others, that how it heals others. Whoops, he dropped off. Hopefully he'll drop back on. And he can finish the question too. What do you think, Ram?
Again, it's sort of what I was talking with Scott. He's identifying, in my opinion, exactly why they're against it. Our society is optimized for profit rather than human benefit.
Right.
And because of that, it's like he's talking about those piles of bodies around the Washington Monument. The people who are making decisions are like, well, how much money did we make off of those bodies? As long as they're making enough money, they're fine with the giant pile. And that's unfortunately a truth about our government that I think people need to face. Is it's not out for people's benefit. It's out for the campaign contributors' benefit, and that all revolves around corporations. What do you think there?
Yeah, I couldn't say it better. It really is. Whether it's healthcare or anything else, it's how it is. So we have to continue fighting in the way people like Scott and others fighting. Like I said, the Santo Daime Church in Oregon is doing fine. There's one in Austin, and I mean, come on, you've got people like Joe Rogan and half of Silicon Valley, banging the drum for these sort of alternative medicine. That should be a no-brainer, right, Graham?
It should. I also don't trust the Silicon Valley people because I think it's a matter of they want to control it rather than the government.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. But again, they do talk about how it benefited their health, their work life. Again, they're not running around. They're destroying the world, but they're not dysfunctional members of society for the most part.
Yeah, you say that, and I'm thinking about colonialism. And there were so many people in England who would talk about how great, the sugar plantations in the Caribbean, their sugar plantations were, and how much they've benefited from it. Look at how, they now, they added a whole wing to their mansion. Mm-hmm. It's like, just because you benefited doesn't mean society's better off. And that's another lesson people need to learn. Just because they're better off doesn't mean everybody else is.
Yeah. Don't trust the government. Don't trust HR. Don't trust corporations. We can trust ourselves in small communities. And even then, the effects will happen. There'll be a Karen or an authoritarian there. But it's terrible. It really is terrible. I mean, you agree the war on drugs is a complete failure. And I don't even know if legalizing is going to fix things because the collective psyche has been so destroyed and wrecked.
I'll take that a step further. War on words are never a good idea. Have we
Mhm.
ever won a war on words? War on poverty, war on drugs, war on terror. It, again, it's something that's a nice flag to wave up there and try to generate profit for their businesses.
Yeah.
Scott's back, so
Hey, Scott,
we
you
need
are
the
back.
expert.
Yeah. We were chatting around, agreeing with you wholeheartedly. So, for the audience, you're here, you're talking. We obviously, Graham and I are 100% in front of you or behind you. I, of course, have done Santo Daime many times and with other organizations. So to me, ayahuasca has really helped my life, and I see the benefits on others. We got to take care of those poor veterans and those with PTSD, especially in these days. But how can the audience support you? What do you want people to do to really get the ball rolling and everything? And I've got your website here, navc.org. Did you hear anything I said, Scott?
uh, yeah, well, I think you'd noted, if I have this right, you're drawing a connection between our the vets that we work with and the other organizations that we're in partnership with, like the North American Association of Visionary Churches and I Mission. Do I have that right?
Yeah, how can regular people help you? Listeners right now. Go to these organizations, or what can they do?
The uh, yeah, the uh, so we're you know we partnered with uh, one of the veterans groups that we work with is called I Mission. They bring veterans into ceremony. We've also partnered. We've actually started the North American Association of Visionary Churches as well, and that in combination, the NAABC is a consortium of visionary churches, uh, and many of whom work with vets. The I Mission helps to bring those veterans.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I'm looking at the website. Yeah, you can become a member, you can donate. So, people out there who want to join and help out, definitely check it out for sure. I think I'm going to join too.
Okay. Um, so we're uh, how's the how's the connection, by the way?
It's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right. So, I'm curious, what does your ritual entail? It sounds very exotic. Going out into the desert. What somebody comes to your church, what's the process, or what's the ritual, Scott?
The it's interesting when people register. Um, there's a little button on a on people register at a specific point. Uh, it might be 2 o'clock in the morning, and someone's filled out their application, and their fingers right over the keyboard, and they press it, and if I happen to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll hear that we have someone who's just registered. Uh, Sometimes people ask me, uh, "Hey, does the medicine start working before you drink it?" From the moment somebody registers, then sets their intention to come in, there seems to be this curious institution, this intentional ripple that starts moving through their lives, whether it's like a funny coincidence or
No.
uh, about the or someone that's they haven't talked to in years, or their dream life changes, their Sometimes before people even come to ceremony, they're feeling nauseous. So there's this whole like people are introduced to ayahuasca, or in many ways, as people describe it, they feel called into ceremony, and then they set their intention, and then they register, and then things start to happen even before ceremony. So the process begins at that stage in many ways, and we have we've modeled our ceremonial space after the Moluccas in South America. So it's a roundhouse with windows around the outside uh, and several entryways. Now, in our case, we have a view to the west of Kivri Peak, and then through our the sun will rise to the easterly door, and then to the north we have uh, we have the North Star. It's positioned uh, within a kind of a low bowl of hills in the Sarita Mountains, so it's a little cooler up in the desert. And so we're surrounded by desert with very few houses. So we have our own 8-acre compound out in the desert. And the ceremony itself begins later in the evening, and then we go all night to we go to first light. Depending on the time of the year, we'll go to sunrise.
Right.
And so then over the course of the night, we start with a little mapacho, which is a strong form of Peruvian tobacco. We pass a pipe around, and then once we have we'll pass around some tobacco tea, and that's snorted up the nose, helps to clear the sinuses, and then we drink, and then over the course of the night, we play some of the Icaros uh, that we brought back from Peru. So some of them are in Spanish, some are in Quechua, some are in English, some are very old. We don't really know how old. We just know that they use an archaic form of Quechua. We had to have some of them translated, get a full translation from Columbia University. There's a scholar there that has written a Quechua dictionary, and even he had a hard time. He passed it to his grad students. The grad students worked on it, and they hadn't sat with the medicine. So once I got the translation back, I'm like, oh, this is what it's saying. And so I was able to then go back and then and then run another layer of translation from my own experience sitting with the medicine. And in any event, we play music over the course of the night. So there's music, silence, the smell of the, uh, the Peruvian incense, Palo Santo, is thick in the air. And then we, over the course of the night, we work with other master plants as well. So people come up to the altar, and we'll work with some of these different master plants. And they've got funny names like Bobansana or Chuyachaki or Rainbow Caspi, and there's a whole array of the panoply of these. And some of them are ground up into powder, and they can be blown up the nose. And but if you drink them individually, let's say Bobansana, it's not even a cup of coffee. You know, and you kind of wonder, am I feeling anything? And then over time, the feeling might be, oh, yeah, okay, I feel something. And then a little bit farther down the line, the feeling might be, oh, yeah, there's definitely something there. And then you realize wow, that's really pronounced. And then maybe a little bit later, oh, that's permanent. And so they're working with these master plants inside of the ceremonial form can heighten their initial effects. And so Bobansana is very heart opening. So people find their heart open up, and or in other cases, like Raymond Cosby, there's a certain kind of a sense of durability and strength
Mhm.
that's drawn from it. And then in all cases, these master plants feel more like springboards to something that's quite natural and innate to your own capacities as a human being. It's not giving you anything you don't already have. It's getting you to recognize something that's innate in you.
Right.
And so that takes people right up to the early morning hours, and we close things off. We don't have a formal sharing time after ceremony. We allow for a little time to rest, and then we have some fresh fruit. And I think quite naturally people want to share their stories, and so they do in small groups. And it's entirely organic, and the kinds of coincidences that flesh out are really pretty stunning. They're uncanny. That you have two people who are coming in from different parts of the country that happen to meet, and they both have a unique, and apparently absolutely unique personal history, and they just found their eyeline match to it. And I see people like connect like that all the time, and just
Mm.
those one-on-one connections, and people realize we had these two women that came in ceremony a few years ago in uh, Portland, Oregon, and we were just having ceremony by the beach, and in the middle of the night, they're on the opposite sides of the wheel. They both start to cry, just
Wow.
these gentle tears, and then that subsides, and then we get some rest, and we have some fresh fruit, and people sort of milling around talking, and the two of them meet, and it turns out that within the last year they both lost teenage daughters,
Oh, wow.
and under very similar circumstances, and you could have knocked each one of them over with a feather. But that they were both working through that over the course of the night. Um, it's uh, it's really, I find it like I'm awestruck all the time after ceremony. After ceremony, people can be absolute poets, or they're more like, I have no words. I have no words for what just happened to me last night. And so for the people that are in the no words camp, it's fine. They can be they may find somebody else. Very likely, sometimes people take a stroll through the desert. Other times, people kind of initiate a new friendship with someone and start they start sharing about their lives. So, and either way, it's a pleasure and kind of inspiring to see how people work their way through ceremony.
Yeah, I've seen it too. And yeah, obviously, you can expect some supernatural stuff to happen, voices, communication from other places. But as I tell people, yeah, don't have expectations. Let the plant decide the agenda, what you need to work on, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. As we get to the end, I want to bring in Graham. Graham, I have to jump out again. Somebody's at the door with a package. It's Monday. Mondays when all these things happen. But Graham, last question or two for Scott.
I was going to say my last question there is, how do you think you can overcome that hurdle of trying to deal with the government that just doesn't care about people, it only cares about donations and money? Okay.
Uh, well, I certainly caught the last part about that. Uh, there, you find priorities are a bit mixed up. At the within within agencies. I think the problem, among others, but one of the core problems is that people divorce themselves from their own conscience. and they can adopt institutional authority like wearing a Darth Vader suit. It keeps them alive and it gives them power. And without it, they'd be kind of short of breath, kind of like Darth. Yeah. Um, but with it, they're given they're given institutional authority. But the risk is that they'll give up personal authority to be able to hold space, to command like genuine um, agency within their own personal lives. And
So
it's a shame when that happens because people give up their personal, agency, they give up personal authority, personal power, and they don't bring that in to these institutions. The institutions take over for the individual.
so you're basically
That's a
saying
big
you
problem, and that's one of the things we've seen. And regardless of which administration happens to be in power, the important thing, and I would love to see more of it, is for people to um, act from their conscience and vote their conscience and tap in and recognize, not only honor the conscience of themselves, but be curious about and honoring the conscience of others. Find out where people are coming from. In my little tagline, when I'm discussing politics with family, is I'm just like, some people don't talk politics with their family, right? Which means they find it hard to talk with politics. There's no way to practice talking to the other side of the aisle, right? If you can't practice with your own family. So my little tagline is, hey, just remember, my relationship with you is more important than politics. So if politics are interfering with your personal life, you've been hacked. You're being manipulated, right? Like, I would say, like, just be wary of allowing politics to interfere with your personal relationships. And if you need a way into and a way out of talking politics with family, you can borrow this. You can borrow my tagline. Just remember, my relationship with you is more important than politics. And so, if conversation starts going sideways, you can come back to that line and to, let's say, with a family member, you can say, hey, just remember, my relationship with you is more important than politics. And then all of a sudden, you both agree that that's true. And you both step down and you go, that's true. My relationship with you is more important than politics. And now, instead of a fight, you've reaffirmed what you value. You've reaffirmed your principles. And if we can do that, we can start building bridges, right? We can start building coalitions. Coalitions aren't built from kicking people out. They're built and bring people in.
Wise words. Well, I'm back. Graham, is my screen frozen or is it something I'm seeing?
No, you're coming across frozen to me.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
sound's great.
Yeah, the tech archons. Yeah, they've been busy today. Well, look, let me take myself out because I look like I'm going, duh. Yeah, yeah. The tech archons have been busy today, but such as it happens. It happens, and we always just got to shoulder through these things. At least the sound is there. So yeah, but I guess we better wrap it up before we incur even more of the wrath of the tech archons today. Um, well, again, I put your link there, Scott. But now I'm getting all this feedback. Is that you, or is that Scott?
I think that's
Uh,
Scott.
yeah, okay, I muted Scott for a second. Yeah, that's tech archons are so busy. Anunnaki, annoying Anunnaki. But anyway, yeah, I've got yeah your link there, Scott, so people can go to there, check it out. I know I am going to subscribe. This is the last show of March, and we got some great stuff coming on in April. Again, we'll have a member stream on the Anunnaki and the Archons on Wednesday. I'll be putting out my latest Gnostic Dispatch, which I think you'll enjoy. It's making the argument that Plato's demiurge wasn't actually the good guy in this, so prepare for some shocks. And then I'll have an Abraxas brief where Graham and I talk about false gurus and cults. Very important one today, and definitely relevant to this show. Then later on in the month, after some many good shows on various topics, Graham will be doing his third series on Charlie Kirk, the occult side of it, and he's going to bring in the Vegas shooter. So good stuff coming. And at some point in the month, I will doing my Gnostic vowels, magic, and ecstatic brain presentation. Talk about getting some useful tools to get yourself in an altered state of mind. So yeah, please support AM Byte in any way you can, because the Gnostic revolution continues. But here at the end, Graham, I will say thanks for keeping us company.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And I was going to say, my takeaway from Scott is humanity has basically forgotten that lesson that we supposedly learned in World War II. I was just following orders is not an acceptable excuse for hurting other people. Okay?
No. Well, Scott, thank you very much for coming on the show, and we wish you the best with the court case and your continued work out there in the desert. You're on. Oh, wait, let me unmute you. Sorry, Scott. Where is it? All right, you're unmuted.
Thanks, Miguel. Thanks, Graham. It's been a total pleasure. Most grateful.
Pleasure has been ours, and we really appreciate what you're doing. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. All right, everybody, have a good rest of your Monday. I hope you meet less tech archons. And don't worry, we are going to persevere. We are going to get through this. We are going to get to the other side. And we're just going to find out our true selves at the end. Anyway, take care, everybody, and have a good rest of your day and continued week. Join Patreon, AB Prime, or YouTube membership for all complete episodes and other aeonic rewards, including monthly Q&As, a private RSS feed, exclusive Gnostic vlogs, articles, ebooks, and private groups. Join the resistance and escape the Black Iron prison.